Hey, welcome to Wood 4 Guitars. Thanks for stopping in. If you're new here, this is your first video, we're building a 3-string cigar box guitar and a 4-string cigar box guitar. So on these two guitars, I decided to do nuts instead of 0 frets, and I really don't know why. I don't know if there was really a reason, but I do remember watching a Dan Erlewine video, and he was from Stumac. He was dropping blank nut material on a piece of granite, and the plastic hit and just kind of went plink. The tusk material, which is man-made and really dense, it hit and was bright and glassy. Now I dropped bone on there. It was bright and glassy, but a little bit warmer. So maybe that's why I decided, I don't know. But I decided to go with these nuts. This is a 2-piece dyed bone nut blank. These are made for cigar box guitars. So they come out of the package ready to go, and they're the perfect width. They're a little thick in my opinion, but they are 6.1 millimeters or 1/4 inch. Now this one is just under, it's 0.33 inches, so it's just under 3/8. And millimeter, that's 8.5 inches, or 8.5 inches, 8.5 millimeter tall. Well, I did like, because it fits perfect in there. You can use these, put in some, you can use these, just put in your string slots, and you're good to go. There's no extensive shaping necessary. Now, I wanted it a little bit thinner. 2 reasons: where my headstock drops off. This one, where the veneer is, needs to be thinner. And I did a little work on this one. I might be hard to see, but I thinned it up. Let me have the other one for comparison. This ain't gonna work. Alright, so let's get a closer look at those. Let me get this guy out of the way. Here's the 2 nut blanks. You can see how thick that one is. For my taste, I just wanted a little thinner. So I thinned it up and rounded this edge that's going to go towards the headstock. And that's it. But what I found out is the die is just on the surface. Now, that's not a complaint. So when I took this to the belt sander, I realized how deep the die went. Not a problem. I got it as thin as I wanted it, and I rounded off the front that's going to go towards the headstock, and a little bit on the corners, and that was it. So I came back with a salmon wood stain. Saves the day. Wiping the stain on, I just kept wiping it off. I eventually just put a good coat on the nut and let it dry. So it's pretty hard to tell the difference. Alright, so now for the bridge. I have been wanting to use this piece of acrylic for a long time, and it was a longer piece of acrylic. Give me a quick shot of what I have now. This still needs one more polishing because I did a little bit of work to it, but yeah, this thing is pretty neat. What I really like is that if it's clear, you can see through and you can still see the box. I don't know, I thought it was neat. I think it looks cool with the brass rod in there. Now, I cut it off with a hacksaw and started sanding. And I sanded with 220 grit, 320 grit, 400, and then I skipped to 1,000 because I don't have anything in between. Went to 1,500, and then I actually went to polishing. Now, if I had more grits going higher, I would have probably went up to at least 3,000, maybe more, I don't know. This was, yeah, it actually worked pretty well. So my next thing was to get a groove in here to mount this brass rod. I thought about making some kind of jig that holds it on both sides, where I could put a little fence on it, use a router and a router bit, and plunge, come up. I thought about a Dremel tool, maybe just do it with a file. I really didn't want to scratch it up and put any marks on it. So Mrs. Woodport suggested, why don't you do something like you do when you are hogging out material on a mortise? So if you know what a mortise is, it's a hole in a piece of wood and it's square. But instead of chiseling all the wood out, you go over to the drill press, put in a Forstner bit, and you just hog out a bunch of the material, and then you only have to clean it up with a chisel. It's a lot less chisel work. And I said, well, that's a pretty good idea because I can put a fence up so that this is straight all the way across. So I had that little piece I cut off. I did some testing. A drill bit was too thin, it deflected too much. I ended up using a Dremel bit, and it had a thicker shank, so it really wouldn't deflect, and it was more of a grinding bit than a cutting bit. And that's what I did. I set the depth stop on the drill and still used some playing cards to shim up when I needed to, because they're exactly 0.01 inch thick. And I just went ahead and went down, made the groove, and then I started going back and forth, and I believe I pulled a shim out and went back and forth trying to make it as smooth as possible, so if you see it from below, it doesn't look like there's a bunch of nasty, gnarly looking material in there. Well, then after that, I took it over and started using these small, angled, and weird shaped files. Some of them are round, some are flat, they're triangle shaped, but they're all at an angle, and that helped me get down into this groove. I believe they're called riffle files. I made up some 5-minute epoxy, and I was going to be very careful, just put it in the groove and put my piece of brass in there, but I ended up getting the epoxy all over this thing, and that's why some of this needs to be repolished, is because I had to remove epoxy from it. It ended up being a mess, but in the end, this thing's going to look sharp. This guitar has an extreme back angle, but I actually love it. You can see how high the bridge is compared to this guitar with no back angle, and the bridge is much lower. So the back angle is just this angle between your box and the neck. Now I wanted this guitar to have some back angle, and when you make back angle, when your wood is still whole, you measure down 1/4 inch from this end and take it back to the top on this end, draw that line, and that's your angle that your neck is going to sit at. So you will end up removing some material here for a pickup, some here because you don't want it bouncing on the top, rattling on the top of the box. But back here you still have some material that the back of the lid would pretty much rest on. That's how I make mine anyways. So this guitar didn't end up with as much back angle as I wanted. So I'm going to have to fix that. And I'm also going to have to fix it because when I put this on here and I measure this distance where the bridge is going to go, it's not as much room for the bridge. So if I slide the bridge under there, let's just go ahead and go 24 3/4 from the nut. So the bridge is actually going to be right there. And if you look at the gap I have here, once you put a nut on it and raise the strings up a little bit, that's too much. And that would be a lot of sanding on this, and I really don't want to do the sanding on this. I would rather do the sanding on this piece of the neck. So I'm going to end up taking this back to the saw. So the more angle you have here, the higher your bridge is going to be. Now I'm betting on that. Take this down a little bit more, probably another 1/8 of an inch at least, and then I'll just do a dry fit and see how this is working. And that's pretty much that, I do believe. I'm sure there's something in here. Oh, I've only got 4 minutes left. All right, real quick before the tape runs out. I've got the pickup for this one. gonna be right there. I've got some nice cool knobs. They're gonna go somewhere back in here. And what I got this time is pre-wired. I did have a viewer request a video on pickup switching, which I will do on the Solos. It's gonna have 2 pickups. But this one I wanted to do a coil splitter because this is actually a humbucker in the package of a single coil, and I want to see if it's worth doing. So in this kit, I actually got this push-pull, and I learned how to wire it up from Dylan Talks Tone, and we're going to go over that in the next video. I'm going to put this thing together, wire it up. I want to be playing this by the next video, and I don't want it to be a month from now. So thanks for watching this far. Thanks for hanging out. Like, share, subscribe. All that stuff really helps the channel out, and I really appreciate you. I think we're at 869 subscribers now. I appreciate every one of you. Thank you. Till next time, have fun.